Greetings and welcome back to the lab. Today we're going to talk about building this test module. This is already built and I wanted to build it to verify that it actually worked the way I was anticipating. So I've also built the first part of the keyboard. Now this will be in another video, but just to demonstrate how this works, I'm going to go ahead and line my module up with the keyboard. I'm going to grab some power seemingly from out of nowhere. I'm going to plug it in. Now I'm powering this by USB. We're going to talk about options. There are a bunch of options, but I happen to be powering by USB. And if I've done this right, it's probably not lined up properly. Yeah, I'll bet you that's it. It goes right there. If I've done this properly, there we go. Red, green, blue, white. Those are just the white keys. If I do the black keys, I get copies of the previous white keys. So red, red, green, green, blue. There's a spacer here, so that one's not actually activating, but there's no switch under there either. I have tested though, and it does appear that everything is working with that particular switch in terms of the circuit board beneath. Then I've got white and I've got white. Now I can do combinations also. Red and green give me yellow. Red and blue give me magenta. And green and blue give me cyan. I can also add a white, which will just make it brighter. Either one of these. I could do all three colors and I also get white. What else? That's pretty much it. It's just basically a different color or a variation for each one of these keys. So there are 8 possible colors that you could get from 8 possible keys, although when you're building a keyboard, you're going to have your 2 black keys followed by your 3 black keys followed by another 2, by another 3, and so on, with the white key gap in between. So that is what we're building. Let's just jump into it. I'm going to unplug this right now, massage it out, separate this so they don't get smacked, move that out of the way, and here is an empty circuit board. And I mentioned that there were options, so let me point some things out here on the circuit board. If you look carefully at the circuit board, and hopefully it's zoomed in enough that you can see it, I've got a red, a green, a blue, a blue. Those are the first 6 keys. I've got 2 white keys here, but in the form of 6 resistors, because what I'm doing is I'm actually powering this LED, this 4-pin LED, which I'll explain in a moment, with 3 different components. So I've got the white 1 red component, white 1 green component, white 1 blue component, and then white 2 red, green, and blue. That is basically the same configuration as I'm using here, and when you add them up, you're going to end up drawing more and more power from these LEDs in here. There's actually 3 LEDs inside here. Maybe I should actually show you the LEDs we're talking about. This is a 4-pin LED, and they come in 2 varieties. They come in common positive and common negative. As it turns out, I've run out of the common positive, which is what this is designed with. This is a common negative. So I ended up having to take one of my RGB adapter boards, which also has, if you look very carefully, and I'm hoping that'll come through, it has 4 pins there, but the common pin is negative. I ended up harvesting one off, and that is this one right here. So I'll be able to put this one into this board. In order to verify that it is working, I'm using a button cell. This button cell, and most button cells, the smaller side is the negative and the larger side is the positive. And so if there's one of these pins in the middle that is a common pin, that should be a common positive. If I line up this button cell the right way, then my positive is going to hit the common pin and I get light. If I were to bend out some more of these pins, which will be confusing for me later if I forget to put them back. If I do that now, if I do it this way, I'm not going to get anything. That's because the common pin is now on the other side, and if I light that up, you can see it's a little hard to show, but hopefully you can see the green coming through. So really it's red, green, and blue in that order, and they are all, the red is on one side of the common pin, and the green is on the opposite side of that pin, and then the blue is a little bit further over. So that is how these particular LEDs work. You're going to need at least one, but if you're trying to follow along, you're going to probably end up buying at least 5 prototypes of this. I bought 5. I have 5. Well, I have 4 left. I'm going to go ahead and bend this pin in here, and I'm going to try and actually install the LED to start with. Usually not the best way to do it. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there is on the circuit board, on the side where it says D1, there's a flat side. That should correspond to the flat side on your common positive LED, which I'm looking for. There it is. So if I've done this right now, I can go ahead and stick this in. Okay, that went in. That feels good, knowing that that worked out, considering I had to harvest this off of something else. So we'll go ahead and solder that in a little bit. It seems to be holding itself in nicely. I wanted to go back to talking about power real quick. So there are actually 2 power options, and I realized after I developed this I should have done this slightly differently, and I'll probably release this is 1.0, I'll release a 1.1 version with a slight modification. This here is for, where did I put it? There it is. A little adapter board that has 5 pins on it, but we're only interested in 2 of the pins. This is for a micro USB, so I can hook up that cable that I happen to have for powering things on the workbench here. Now, what this does is ultimately allow me to connect this way onto the board. Now I'm going to use these header pins to do that. And that is one method of powering. Now, the key to this is when you use that, it's going to have the connector on this side. The LED is down here, the connector's on this side. Alternatively, if you just have a couple of wires for power, you can use these header pins, which say VCC and ground. VCC is your positive and ground is your negative. What I should have done is move this whole connector over here, because then ultimately what you could do is you could use this to power the board, and if you wanted to have multiple boards, you could daisy chain them. You could have the power coming in here, and then if this connector was over here, you could take that and connect from here to, let's just pretend I've got a second board here. Hook the wires from here to there and daisy chain so that you're powering everything off of the same power source instead of having to have multiple power sources if you wanted to have multiple boards. And the reason why you might want to do that is if you think about the keyboard itself, here you got the keyboard, here you've got one of your boards on top of it, and then if your keyboard extends over, you've got another one here, and you could just keep going, and you could have all of these test units lined up, and when you play something on the keyboard, you get a series of lights. Maybe it's colorful, maybe somebody wants to do a color organ or something like that, but this was originally intended just to be a test board to verify that the switches are working. So, let's dive back into the board itself. We've got the resistors. What I ended up choosing, and I'll put this up on the screen, is for my reds. Oops, my little pointer came apart here. For the reds, I'm using 1K. For the greens, I'm using 2K, and for the blues, I'm back to 1K. The reason is the green is super efficient and gets bright, brighter so than the red or the blue. So that's why I'm using a lower value for the red and the blue, and a higher value for the green. Same thing applies over here. So we're going to have 1K, 1K, 2K, 2K, 1K, 1K Over here we're going to end up with 1K, 2K, 1K, 1K, 2K, 1K. Hopefully that all made sense. But that's all the parts. Oh, no, sorry. That's almost all the parts. The last thing is, if I bring the keyboard back in, the original point of my design was to have a header here that you could plug different modules into, so that this half an octave is controlling a module. Those modules can all be connected together. It's really up to you what you want to end up doing, but the base of the entire system is this, what I'm calling the switchboard. It's really the actual keys for the keyboard. There will be a header for every half an octave. So there'll be 2 headers per octave. That header allows the connection to here, and I'm using a female header here, which means we need a male header to go into the back of this. And these you can buy, these header pins. Usually you end up getting like 10 sticks of, well, much longer sticks. Like this is a longer version of it. I think this is actually the 10 pin that I have, but they come, I think they're 40 pins total, and then you buy like 10 of them, so you get quite a bit, and you can snap them off at whatever number of pins you want. And so I can take this, and I can take another one, and I can stick it in here, and now what I've got is basically a 5x2 that matches the keyboard. In terms of the female header, I ended up having to buy them specifically as a 5x2. You can buy snappable versions, but they get a bit more expensive just for the female version. That said, that is now all my parts. I'm going to take these off right now. I'm going to go ahead and just start soldering everything together. We'll go into time lapse, and we'll see if it all works. Cue the music. Alright, I have to admit, this looks really rough, and I'm just having a bad day when it comes to soldering. That can happen to anybody. It's just certain things weren't working out the way I wanted to. I got solder into places that weren't soldered yet, and then when I went to put on the next component, the hole was blocked, and that's what you saw me trying to do there. So I've now at this point got the header in, I've got the power in. I still need to put in all of these resistors, so that's what we're going to do next. Cue the music. Remember I said I was having a bad day. I got these backwards while I was putting it together, because if you recall, I was saying it was basically on one side it was going to be red, green, blue, red, green, blue. On the other side it's red, red, green, green, blue, blue. And as far as putting in the 1K resistors, it's going to be on, off, on on one, and it's going to be on, off, on the other. I got that backwards. Fortunately, I did not finish putting these particular ones in. And now, this is something I'm realizing. Maybe I need to work some part of that out in the design for the next version. But, let's see, for sure that was red. Actually, okay, this was correct. These two reds should go together. I'm going to have to do some desoldering on this side. That stinks. Red, green, and then see this one, this is the pattern that should have been on this side, is the pattern that I did on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this, and hopefully in the end it will all work. Now I will say, anybody trying to build something for the first time, don't give up, just keep trying. If you're trying to do this on your own and you had to buy 5 of them for a minimum order and you only need the one, well, there you go. You got extra parts to work with. Hopefully that all works out for you. Alright, those are in. I'm going to go ahead and solder these. Then you're going to see me try and fix. Actually, I'm going to put the 2Ks in too, so that into here before I start soldering, so I don't end up plugging these holes while I'm in the middle of soldering the other ones around it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get going on this. Cue the music. Okay, I've survived the removal. Wow, this video is just going completely wrong. I've survived the removal. There's one where the hole is still blocked, but I'm going to try and fill in these holes with as many of the resistors as I can and then get them soldered on. Then I'll deal with that last one, and then we'll be done with this and I can demonstrate it. So, once again, cue the music. Wait. I didn't go away completely. Unfortunately, with everything else that's going wrong, my camera ran out of memory. So, as it turns out, I did finish, and I kept going thinking that it was still recording. I did manage to get all the resistors in there, so let's plug it in and see what we got. So now I'm just going to line up all of these pins. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but for the moment, this is what I've got. And let's go ahead and plug this in. Let's go ahead and plug this in. He said, as that goes wrong too. Okay. Red, green, blue. Not red, green, and blue. Green, green, green. How about white? Green. Something obviously has gone wrong. I don't know if it's the LED that I harvested, or I don't think it's getting the resistors mixed up in some way. I know that the switches are okay because I have the other one that I had already built to prove that it would work, and that one works fine. So I'm going to have to do another video trying to find the source of the problem. I'm going to go ahead and put a little X on this one so I know it's the one that went bad on me. But you get the idea, putting all the components together. It should work. The circuit board itself is wired up correctly, at least I think it is. The factory, I can't imagine that they did it in different ways or something else went wrong there. So I'm going to have to do some fault finding and figure out what's wrong with this. I think I'll make that another video so we can learn a little bit about diagnosing problems. But that's this one built. That is our first module. Trust me, it should work. We'll determine that with the fault finding episode. But the next episode is going to be building this keyboard and going through the various details of building this and why this thing is sticking off the side here. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, for sticking around to this point. Stay tuned. We'll have more.